Hey guys, new RC Racer here. Just doing a quick review on the ISDT FD-200 Discharger. I just picked this thing up, held up for a long time on getting one of these. Always felt like it was a bit of a luxury considering that you could just discharge your battery either with your charger or with one of those light bulb dischargers hooked up to a cell checker. You can get those for about $20 give or take online. So I just never really felt like I absolutely needed to get one of these. Now that I've had it for a day or so, I feel like it was actually money pretty well spent. Kind of an oxymoron, but I feel like it's kind of a necessary luxury. And I'll explain quickly why. The methods that I talked about a second ago, they work pretty well. There's a couple problems with them. One, using a charger to discharge your batteries takes a long time. Most chargers only offer something around like 5 watts to maybe 10 watts or so of discharge power, although most I've seen are around low single digit wattage. And what that means is once you try to draw the electricity out of a battery using something that has such a low wattage, means that you limit it to something like 1 amp, maybe 5 amps of discharge. So if you have a battery pack, a LiPo battery that's 5,000 milliamps, even in kind of the racing scene, most guys are going to be using somewhere around 3,000 on the low end to maybe 6,000 on the high end for a 2-cell battery. It takes a while to discharge that. You're sitting there for 20 to 30 minutes trying to watch this thing discharge. The other disadvantage of that is your charger gets really hot. So when you discharge, you're basically turning electrical energy into heat energy. So the charger has a resistor in it. It's basically running the electricity through there, feeding it through there, allowing it to dissipate as heat. And that's why you hear the fan always kick on when you use a discharger on your charger. Now, it's not really a problem if it gets rid of all the heat, but all the chargers I've seen get pretty warm. They just can't really keep up with that. They're not really made for that per se. They're made to charge. The discharge thing is almost an aside for most chargers, just because they have to kind of cram that into the case, and it just doesn't work very well. So your charger gets warm, and that's just not really good for electronics. I have a suspicion that a lot of guys that see their chargers fail pretty quickly are just doing a lot of discharges on it, and introducing heat into delicate electronics is just never a good idea. So the second thing I talked about, those bulb discharges, and they work pretty well. Again, one of the negatives is that they're kind of limited in terms of wattage. I mean, it depends on how many bulbs you hook up. If you do a DIY, you could hook up a lot of bulbs or get some resistors online and hook it up that way. But here's the thing, either bulbs or resistors are going to get really hot. And usually most guys that I've seen with their kind of DIY projects have those things kind of hanging out in the open, or maybe at the most kind of on like a little project enclosure or a piece of wood. Those things get really hot. It's basically a fire hazard. So if you were smart, you'll sit there and watch that thing. So we kind of go back to the whole, like, you're watching this thing discharge for, anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes per pack. And I don't know about you, I got better things to do. So those two methods are just dandy if you don't mind either dealing with the fire hazard, the potential damage to your charger, or just being bored out of your mind, sitting there wasting time watching this thing trying to discharge your pack. So that's the reason I picked up this charger. It's just one, to make it quicker to discharge the packs. This thing offers up to 200 watts of discharge. That means you can get on a two cell battery, you should be able to get up to about 25 amps. For the larger cell batteries, they'll be, I believe, still should be able to get up to a higher amperage, but I haven't really looked into that. I don't do 6-cell, 4-cell batteries. I'm not much of a drone guy or anything like that, so I'm sure other reviews can speak to that a little bit better. I'm just mostly just presenting this in terms of my usage and my applications. So for 2 cells, it's definitely going to get up to its maximum of 25 amps. That's pretty quick. That's not as quick as some of the guys using, iCharger duos with external resistors. They can get up to like 40 amps. So if that's your goal, if you want to like excite the pack before charging it, or if you just want to save even more time, by all means, you can go that route. But we're talking about a $300 charger coupled with probably a $100 external resistor, and kind of sort of the same thing. You're still hooking all this up to a charger, taking up a charging port, and bringing all kinds of cables and an extra resistor with you. So it's a little bit of money and hassle problem as far as that goes. So this thing got it for discharging faster, and then the second reason is just safer, in my opinion. This thing has a pretty decent fan on it. In using it a few times up to this point, I've never seen it get really above maybe body temperature, even at 25 amps. So I'm not worried about it touching something flammable on my bench and setting it on fire. Now if the fan quits, that's a different story, but as we'll see here in a second, as loud as the fan is, it'll be pretty obvious if the fan quits. So let's get into the functionality of this thing. So right off the bat, it works as a standalone unit. You pretty much need to hook up something that has an XT60 connector on it. I basically modified one of these balance adapters that you get with just about every LiPo battery out there, and instead of I believe it was a Dean's connector that came on this one, I soldered on a XT60, and I've got a fully charged 3800 milliamp practice pack here that I don't mind exercising. So we're gonna hook that up. Cable could be longer for a little more convenience, but this works. So press a button, gives you a nice little melody, turns on, and you notice that the LED is kind of a white color. We'll cover that here in a second. There are a couple different colors of LED that will show up. So right now it's indicating 2-cell because that's what I've been using, but you can certainly select, wrong button. And this particular unit does come with kind of a janky button here. I think I might request a return. It's just, you see I gotta kind of like fuss with it to get it to work, but you can pick different cells here. So that was 2S, 3S, this is 4S, 5S, 6S, and then it kind of goes into a combination because it runs out of real estate for the LEDs. So that's a 2 plus 6, which is 2 plus 5, which is a 7S. And then if you keep going and if this button wants to work, then we've got an 8S, okay, and then back to 2S. And this left button will allow you to cycle through your charge rates, which is indicated in so the cell count is indicated on the bottom, the charge amperage is indicated on top. So now I'm at 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Back to 5 again. All right, so on this pack, let's, for example, let's say we want to do 15 amps. Get it to 15 amps, and what you do is just hold down one of these buttons. And away it goes. And those green LEDs are going to tell you how full the pack is right now, and at what point it's getting to during the discharge. So as it discharges, it's going to reduce the LEDs all the way down to 1. And as you can tell, it's pretty loud. I'd say it's about the volume of a small hairdryer set on low. All right. Okay, so I've gone ahead and stopped the discharger so I can take a look at the app that works with the discharger through Bluetooth connection. It's actually pretty powerful using it that way. A lot of these gadgets, when they have a Wi-Fi or Bluetooth connection, I'm usually kind of like whatever. That's just as easy to do it through the onboard menu or through the device itself. But in this case, especially with that janky button that I have on this particular discharger, this app actually works really well, and it does give you some info. So the app's called ISD Go. You can find it either on Google Play or whatever app store you have, Apple App Store. Installed pretty easily on my iPhone. And when you first open up, this is the screen you get. Got a little advertisement banner on top, and then once you connect it through Bluetooth, and the way to do that is you just kind of hold both buttons down for a few seconds. This goes into Bluetooth search mode. Make sure Bluetooth is on your phone and the app's installed, and it'll pick it right up. Okay, so once you get in there, you hit that, and it takes you to basically a dashboard. And it takes a second for it to recognize the charger, hook up via Bluetooth, and there you go. And one thing you'll see right away is you've got kind of a clock style countdown graph there to show you basically what it deems as the capacity until it gets to storage voltage, which is indicated right here, 3.80 volts per cell, which is a pretty standard storage voltage. And right here is telling you the total volt for the LiPo pack, and also the volts per cell, which at this point is 4.13. And that's really, if you notice, the balance plug is not hooked up. There's no provision for a balance port on here. So really it's just measuring the total voltage and then splitting it in half, which, you know, it's acceptable in this regard. We're not discharging doesn't have to be an exact science, as long as it gets the total pack voltage correct. Your individual cells are going to be pretty close, and as we'll see, that this thing gets pretty close to it being quote unquote balanced out there. And then on the bottom you're going to see, let me get rid of some of the glare here from my overhead light. Sorry about that. Scooch the phone. There, that's better. So on the bottom here, you've got some metrics for the charger. Temperature, internal temperature, 26 degrees. Below that is the number of times this thing's been cycled or used. And then over here on the right is some current information in terms of once we turn it on, you'll see that it's telling you how much it's drawing from the battery pack. And then preset task, I have not dived into that yet. I believe that, you know, it would be useful for something like cycling, or if you have certain requirements for, you know, going probably on a gradient for discharging, then that'd be a good thing to use. Looks like this thing's kind of turned off by itself and does time out. The discharger does time out after a while if you don't do anything, and so we just have to kind of tap it, get it to wake up again. And there it's hooked up again. So without further ado, let's see how this thing works. So what you do is you press the play icon there on the bottom, and then it gives you what current you want, cutoff voltage, and then the type of pack that you've got there. And you can select the current right here. So it's got a standard, on the iPhone anyway, it's got a standard scroll up, scroll down menu. And might as well go full Monty here. Send it, 25 amps. Check, everything looks okay, and then we hit go. And this thing's got basically a soft ramp up. It's not going to hit 25 amps right off the get-go. It takes probably a minute or so for it to get up to that amperage. And there's a hairdryer. And the amps are coming up. And as you can see, it's ramping up, you know, fairly steadily. I'd say every few seconds it's going up about an amp or two. And then as it gets close to the cutoff voltage, it will draw the amps back down. Pretty similar to what a charger does as it charges a pack. Okay, so right now we are, get the camera right here. So I've hooked up a cell tracker to this thing. As you can tell, on the dashboard it's showing 3.8. Being under load is going to fluctuate a little bit through the balance port. So we're seeing it jumping between 2.7 and 3.8 as the amps draw down. Okay, so it just ended, and we're gonna end that annoying tone right there. So you see the dashboard changed colors, let you know that everything's done, and now it's reset back to what it was. So my cell checker is telling me 3.81, 3.82, thereabouts per cell. Dashboard's telling me 3.82. So I mean, your cells aren't that far apart. So it's not like one's way down there and one's really high, which would be a problem because when you go to balance that, then it takes quite a bit longer, and it's not great for your cells as far as storing them if one's above storage voltage or way below. But in this case, it's pretty close. Totally acceptable to me. May not be to you, just really depends. But yeah, that's pretty much the function of the ISDT FD-200 discharger. Like I said, kind of a necessary luxury, if that makes sense. I've kind of settled with using different kinds of bulb dischargers or using the charger, and this thing took about 6 minutes. If you go back in the video and look, from beginning to end for pretty much a fully charged pack, going at about 25 amps, and for such a small pack it just never really gets to ramp up to 25 amps. It topped out at about 20, and then it started to come back down as the capacity of the cell dropped. So you may not be able to reach that thanks to that kind of soft start. You may be pretty much peaked at about 20 amps diving into a typical 2S battery. Alright, if you guys like my content, please subscribe. I would love it if you guys go in the comments, let me know what you think. And also, if you have any suggestions as to products you'd like me to review, please let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Take care.